The village of Nialdew in rebel-controlled western Upper Nile, burned to the ground by militias backed by the government of Sudan. Nialdew is close to the great divide between Sudan's African south and Arab north, on the front line of its war. Its people are sitting on top of the country's most valuable resource, the resource for which Nialdew has been destroyed.
This place was a thriving marketplace, full of traders and people coming around doing their business. And now it has been reduced to almost to nothing. There used to be hundreds of cattle here being sold during the day, every day. Traders were coming to bring things and to take the cattle away as part of their trade. In Nialdew and in western Upper Nile, everybody is being pushed away in order that the oil reserves beneath this land may be exploited.
The southern rebels of the Sudan People's Liberation Army have been fighting for equality with the Arab North for the past 18 years. Now they are fighting to prevent the frontiers of oil being pushed forward. A new pipeline has made Sudan an exporter of oil, and huge tracts of southern Sudan, tracts still controlled by rebel forces like these, are being sold to foreign oil companies. Commander Peter Gadet is the man in charge of the SPLA forces on the front line of the oil war. He belongs to the Nuer tribe, one of the two main tribes in southern Sudan, and the tribe most affected by the relaunching of the oil industry, a tribe that has been massively displaced. Gadet's own family has been displaced and driven south as government forces clear oil-rich African villages for fear they may support the SPLA. Gadet is almost the only SPLA commander who has posed any threat to the government on the oil front. He tells his men they are fighting not a religious war, but a war against the government's grab for oil. Our message to the government and to the international community is that the oil belongs to us, the people who have always lived in this region, the region of Bentiu. But the government has responded to our demands by sending Antonov bombers and helicopter gunships. They have launched an air war that is killing us and our children. The people of southern Sudan are gaining nothing from oil. William Gatjang left school in the Arab north to look for work in the oil fields. When he arrived at Heglig, headquarters of the main oil consortium, he went to the market to ask where to apply for a job. The response was immediate. 5 armed security officers arrested me. One of them punched me in the face, leaving a scar here. Then they threw me in a car, took me to prison, and locked me up. Every night at 12 o'clock, the security officers came back to the prison. We were taken out to the yard, where we were beaten with sticks and boots. 5 people held you, 2 on each side and 1 in the middle, and threw you up and down. I understood that they didn't want a southerner, and especially a Nuer, to work in the oil fields. Gadet's forces were allied with the government for years. They defected back to the south late in 1999, a week after the new pipeline opened. We left the government in September 1999 because of the atrocities we saw and the terrible things the government did to our people in the oil fields. The government has armed the Arab cattle herders and turned them into militias. These militias are now targeting the people who live around the oil fields. The SPLA is attempting to keep a presence in oil-rich areas that government militias are systematically targeting. But so far, it's a losing battle. In Nialdew, they returned to an empty shell. Straw huts torched by the militias are now good for nothing but firewood. In Nialdew alone, almost 20,000 people were burnt out of their homes. They picked up the little that was left to them and moved away. Neil Dew's once well-equipped clinic is today an empty ruin. Health worker Joseph Chan still comes to the clinic. Men, women and children still come for help. They wait patiently, even though they know that he has nothing to give them, no matter how minor their ailment. This mother, like so many others, was forced to drink dirty water when she fled from Nial Dew, seeking safety from the militias in the swamps surrounding the River Nile. Now her youngest child is dying.
The child with severe diarrhea and body very hot. He's very weak, and I have nothing to help the child. We have run short of drug for 6 months. Baby like this usually die.
All around Nial Dew, children are dying of diarrhea. It is often caused by drinking water from stagnant ponds like this. In the absence of crops, their mothers are giving them food like these water lily roots that is not suited to their young stomachs. Nial Dew's children still come to the classes given by teacher Michael Sawar Garfan. But Nial Dew's school is almost as poorly equipped as its clinic. Its pupils sit on the ground in pools of ashes without pencils or paper.
I teach under trees because our classes were burned when the war was taking place just 4 or 3 months ago. So we escaped from this area to another places. When we came back, so we found out that there is no any class or any rooms we slept. So we decide to continue our class under these trees.
Watched by villagers who in this wasteland have little else to do.
Before the war in this area, we have very good schools. All schools were built. We have school buildings. We have school materials that we receive from UNICEF and other organizations. This time, we have no school material at all. And classes were burned, and we have no fence, we have no everything. It is very bad school now. It is not a good school.
The United Nations runs a huge relief operation for southern Sudan from this base in northern Kenya. The mandate of this army of aid workers is to serve all war-affected areas of Sudan. But this mandate is not being enforced because of bans by the Khartoum government on the delivery of relief, especially to oil-rich areas like Nial Dew. After emptying oil-rich areas by burning them, the government has to keep them empty. It achieves this by obstructing relief. The few aid agencies that work outside the UN's umbrella can fly into areas banned by the government. But they do so at their own risk. And the help they bring is only a small drop in the ocean of the people's need.
People here are just beginning to drift back from where they felt it was safe. But there's no medical facilities, there's no water, there's no education. This area has received very little relief, especially since the oil was started to be exploited. The United Nations has been denied access to most parts of this land. And therefore the people here have suffered not only by being displaced and pushed off their land, but by being denied access and by being denied their humanitarian assistance, which they need in huge quantities.
In the absence of help from the United Nations, Joseph Chan and his colleague Agostino Gartut, an agricultural worker, have returned to Nial Dew to try to rebuild their community. They are in no doubt about it. Oil is the source of their trouble.
The government doesn't want relief to reach the civilian here because their program is to remove everybody here, all the people who are near the oil field, so that they make sure that the oil field is going well. They want to remove everybody here, then for the safety of the oil field.
This is not our place of before. We are staying there in Hijalija, whereby now the oil field is. So, and they chase us from there up to this village.
A village that has been invaded by the surrounding forest as the frontiers of oil are pushed forward. For the moment it is calm here now, but memories of the flight from Nialdu are still very raw.
It was really difficult because the government militia was firing indiscriminately. People were running, leaving everything. The running was difficult. We have been crossing a lot of rivers. One of them is Deep. After we arrived there into the Deep one, it was only having one canoe. We cannot take the whole people. So people, children and the old people died in the river. Then the other who are young managed to cross the river. It was very, 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 very desperate situation.
And it still is. The militias left nothing standing.
The things which have been planted, like mangoes tree and lemon, they break them and they cut them down, the root, they throw them away. The people can't even get wild fruit because they can't enter the forest. We left from this village, and all the animals has entered the area because the grass has been grown up. Nobody can enter that forest. There is a wild fruit there in the forest, but we haven't a way to get it.
Deprived for the moment of access to one of their most important resources and concerned for the suffering of their children, civilians converge on Commander Gadet's headquarters in the hope that here they may find something to ease their plight. But the SPLA doesn't even have medicines for its own wounded soldiers. In places like this, young men are dying from minor wounds that a simple course of antibiotics could cure. But there are no antibiotics, no beds, not even any bandages. Health workers like Peter make their daily rounds out of a sense of duty, not because there is anything they can do to alleviate the suffering that they see all around them.
We have 47 wounded soldiers here, but we don't have medicine for them because when we fled the area, we went up to northern Bargadal. When we returned back from there, we didn't receive any medicine from medical NGO. The health of the civilians here in the western Upper Nile is very poor because some of the civilians were wounded by bombardment of Anitonov and the helicopter gunship. We personally saw those gunships last year, 1999, and those gunships brought to Sudan in order to protect the oil and the foreign companies to continue drilling that oil for the government of Sudan.
Increasingly, southerners like these are pointing a finger of blame not at the government, but at the foreign companies working with the government. The oil companies are helping the government in many ways. The companies have made roads for the government and provided it with airstrips. One example is the oil industry's airstrip at Heglig, where military planes land. I have been in military headquarters, and so I know what these multinational companies working in Heglig are doing. The government is pushing us away by air and by land. We are being defeated by the oil companies and the government's international allies, not by the government itself. These young men were students when they were conscripted by the government of Sudan and sent to the front with little training and no warning. Their point of transit was the airstrip at Heglig, a bush airstrip before the consortium led by Canada's Talisman Oil upgraded it.
We landed at the company airstrip in Heglig. We spent 2 weeks in Heglig. After that, we sent to fight, and we had captured with SPLA army forces. And now we are in the hand of SPLA forces.
The Heglig airstrip is critical to the government's war effort.
Our total is 250 soldiers come together from Khartoum to Heglig and from Heglig to fight. Yes.
Before he defected to the SPLA, Michael Chan was a liaison officer between Sweden's London Oil and the government's militias. He mapped out all the roads being built by the oil companies. Many lead not to drilling sites, but to the front line of the oil war.
All the roads that going to the government garrisons, especially like Mayom and Wankai, are being revealed by the company now.
But they are being used by the government to clear areas for oil.
The government are depopulating people. First of all, burning the villages. I have seen this when I was in the company, working with the company. Once, if there's any resistance that made by those people, so also they are killing them and arresting the others, looting their cattle, and sending them away from the village. Yeah, so it is very, very, very rough. It is very rough. Yeah, it is a very rough work.
Rough work that is being carried out with weapons like these weapons captured by Gadet's forces. Many are now being made in Sudan, in factories that the government itself acknowledges are funded by oil. Before he defected from the government, Gadet collected rockets like this from a factory in Khartoum. This gun is an anti-tank weapon, one of the new products being made in Sudan at a place called Baguer. There's no manufacturer's mark on it, no serial number, to conceal the place of origin. This company began work in 1998, the year when oil exploration was stepped up. This is a rebel group that seems to have no shortage of recruits, even if some are unacceptably young. The youths who join Gadet's ranks at least have guns to fight with and clothes to wear, something that cannot be said of all Southerners. They may not all have complete uniforms, and some of them may have to improvise some of the time. But their morale appears to be high, and they are among the best drilled of all the SPLA's fighting forces. As long as oil is paying for guns, Sudan's war will never end, and boys like these will continue to die. No amount of cheerleading will change the fact that the SPLA is not winning the oil war. Gadet is a charismatic leader who knows how to rally his troops. But so far he has failed to penetrate the defenses of the oil fields. The oil men are advancing relentlessly, bringing not prosperity, but death.